All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 to 18. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody, bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us together on this Bible study today um, to get through a chapter that there's a particular verse in this chapter we've gone through many times before. But it'll be interesting to get into the other things around this particular verse and what else Isaiah has, not just the prophecy with Jesus, but some of the other things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, so last time what we had gotten into, we had finished up chapter 8 as we had to redo it and got into chapter 9. But as we finished up chapter 8, we started to see more comparisons from this current situation with with Ahaz and with the king of Assyria and the surrounding enemies, and how it compared to the Greco-Roman Empire in the New Testament. And more specifically, we got about the signs and wonders that Isaiah and the children around him, how what they were meant for, comparing about how they were meant for people to be able to believe, not just in God, but that the specific Jewish God was the one true God. Also, about how those that don't have this word, in other words, if they just have any, they make up their own testimony or go about any other kind of context instead of the accurate context of the Bible, how they would be blind to it. They have no light in them as it portrayed. And then as we continued in finishing up, pointed out that even though they may pass through it, they may get through some of the harsh times, in other words, that they're dealing with, but they're barely getting past it. They're starved, they're hungry. And when they are, they start cursing God. And instead, they turn to the earth. They look to the world and worldliness. And they look to the trouble and the darkness and everything going on in the world instead of focusing on God. And that drives them to darkness. In other words, to live in sin and live in worldliness. And then we continued from the same thing going into beginning of 9 as we got into a comparison of how those that are in the darkness, it's not even as bad as it was for Zebulun when God just did a little bit of damage toward them, or even the second time, which was extremely worse to them. But he pointed out that the ones that have walked in darkness, that they have seen a great light. And we saw that comparison to Jesus and how he is the one true light, and how when the light shines on them, pointing out that even in the midst of the shadow of death, or in other words, the point where they could be killed off, that light shined on them. And then he pointed out, as the last two things I have to bring up, is that though they may have grown the nation, whether it's talking about the people, whether it's talking about their authority or power, or whatever else, even as the nation grew, they didn't increase in true joy. Joy, in other words, in following of God, not joy differently than temporary joy that would people get from when they're benefiting from something. And then we had 4, which almost direct quote wise links to the New Testament of the law being broken, because the law was the yoke of bondage for the children of Israel, and how that is going to be broken by God, which obviously Jesus did when he did his sacrifice, and how it even prophesied that that was going to happen after at least the time of the Greco-Roman Empire. But it just happened to happen at that time. But that's the time frame we got, was at least at that time, not currently. So it definitely wasn't talking about the captivity, because that captivity happened before Midian, before the Medes, with Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. So now we're going to continue with that, seeing as though we are talking about a time of war, a time of struggle for the children of Israel, that's not what we're actually talking about in context. We're actually seeing a comparison of Old Testament to New and comparison of how God is going to free them, correlating from their struggles here to sin itself and being free from the sins that the law proves. In other words, having grace. And so now I'll go ahead and switch it to our first section so our first reader can read. And go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 to 9. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride, and stoutness of heart. Starting off, let me go to verse 5. Now, when you start off by saying, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking about either you're in the middle or towards the end of the battle, whatever battle you were in. So you didn't start off with your garments in blood. You end with your garments in
What?
blood after your battle.
No. Try
And
again.
garments rolled in blood.
Yeah.
Well, let me think about that because
Because you're not looking at the rest of it. Is there confused noise when everything is settled down? When it's over?
that would be the like middle of it then. That's what I was thinking about,
There
like
you go.
during the battle.
Well, because you said towards the end of the battle.
Oh wait, I didn't say there was two things I was thinking about, either during the battle or the end.
Oh, maybe I didn't hear when the Wi-Fi switched back to normal. Did you say that?
Well, I thought I did. Thomas, did I say that? I want to make sure I said it first.
I got kicked out the study. I only heard happier reading.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, I got kicked out for some reason.
Do you want me to reread or just go ahead?
This is up to
You
you.
know what? Go ahead and reread. It's not fair to Thomas because it might have been because it switched from Wi-Fi to cellular tower when I got out of the building.
Okay.
So it wouldn't really be fair to him if it's not his fault he got booked.
Okay. I'm gonna read Isaiah chapter 9, verses 5 to 9. Verse 5. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The Lord sent the word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of their stoutness of heart. Okay, let me go back. So for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood during the battle. Is one of the ones I was thinking about. When you're talking about confused noise, you're confused on what's going on in whatever battle you're talking about. And your garments, of course, are going to be in blood because you're still in the battle. So in like during the middle of a battle.
Good.
But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Let me stop.
Well, one problem. Only one. Is this just explaining? That sounds kind of random, doesn't it?
Completely. Compared to what I got to get into next and compared to what we
remember
got
what was
into
going on in
before.
1 through 4, because this is related to 1 through 4, because the word for means because of what I'm said before, I'm saying this. So because every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. So when it says but, we're doing a contrast, right?
But this should. I almost threw something out there that I shouldn't have been throwing out there. Burning and fuel of fire. So when you bring up this contrast and you bring up from the summary what you got into, are we talking? It sounds like we're talking about a contrast between that last verse about breaking the yoke of the burden, that breaking the old law, and
Exactly. Normally, and I'll explain it because I don't think you're gonna. Well, no, let me give Thomas a chance. It does have to do with that, but I want to give Thomas a chance first. Thomas, do you get what it's saying when it makes that contrast of, but this shall be with burning and with fuel of fire in relation to the last verses?
Yeah, so in relation to the last verses, that happened that way, but this is going to happen this way, is what it's saying. Right?
Good. That
Okay.
is good, but how does it correlate to the last verses? The first
I
few
would have to,
verses of 9.
I would have to go back.
All right. So
Unless you want
Thomas
to
was
just go
right
ahead.
about his main point that it is saying that that was different than this will be. Charles, do you get how it correlates to that?
no, I'm trying to see the correlation.
All right. So, what is the battle and the impact of the spiritual warfare that we deal with? What are we really trying to fight against? Are we fighting a war like a battle, like on a battlefield?
No.
No. We're fighting a spiritual battle. So, what are the consequences of that spiritual battle? Charles?
Oh, so when you're fighting if you're fighting a spiritual battle, then if you're not getting the context, you're gonna be confused on when you're doing things. If I should do this, if I should do that,
Okay,
you're not.
no,
If you're not
no,
gonna have the
no. You already screwed up. That said, for every battle, that's bringing up the that. And it says, but this shall be. So it's the burning and the fuel of the fire that's going to be new. It's going to be different. Not the stuff before it. If you do a contrast, you don't go to the first part of the contrast and this is what it is. Unless it says this is how it is and that's how it was. Does that make sense, Charles?
yeah.
That shouldn't. All right. All right. So I'll go ahead and give it. In the last verse of the last section we read, it brought up about the breaking yoke of bondage. And what did I bring up that shows and correlates to, Charles?
Didn't you bring up in a summary the break of the bondage, Old Testament law, breaking the Old Testament law, what Jesus does when he does?
Exactly. What happens if you fail in the Old Testament law?
If you fail at that time, you're supposed to do certain things. But with Jesus, we have his grace, we have
No,
salvation.
I didn't say how do you get forgiveness for. I said if you fail. What happens if you fail? If like
Uh,
period point blank totality, you fail. What happens when you die, Charles? If you fail?
you talking about like going to hell, going to Tartarus? You talking about
Yes.
that? Okay,
And what's the depiction of hell?
burning, lake of fire.
There you go. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Do you get the correlation now?
So when it's saying, but this shall be a burning and fuel of fire, this will be of lake of fire, this will be of hell, this will be of, you mean that in that sense then?
So, in other words, I'll simplify it a little bit further. With every battle, how do you know that there's a battle going on? There's confused noise and there's garments with blood. There's things that show the battle is going on. How will you know how will you know that the spiritual battle has been going on? How will we know? Not how will we guesstimate, how will we know? We won't know beyond faith until we have the time of judgment. Many will come to me in the day. That may be part of it. But every knee will bow, every tongue confess. That shows it more. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yeah, the way you explained it.
And do you get how I got that from the context?
When you brought up, because I wasn't thinking about the lake of fire, I wasn't thinking about if you fail, the consequences and all of that. Once you brought that up, now I get it.
Okay. Thomas, do you get how I got that through the context? Do you see
Yep.
how that connects contextually?
Yep.
All right. So from verse 5, we know the context that we're talking about. Are we talking about an actual war at this time? No. We're talking about the spiritual battle, and we're talking about how from the law, the condemnation of the soul, eternal damnation. Again, showing the lake of fire, not just in New Testament, but in Old. And then we get into verse 6. This is how we're able to know that in verse 6, it's not talking about a child being born at the time of Isaiah. It's talking about the Messiah. Do you guys get how the context shows that? Charles and
When you go
Thomas?
when you go from verse 1 to 5, then to 6.
Yeah. If you leave out 1 to 5, not 1 to 5. If you leave out 1 to 4 and you just read 5 and 6, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's talking about the Messiah of Christ.
That I
That
understand because you need the rest of it. You the verses before it. It'll throw you off if you just
exactly.
start at 5 and keep going.
Exactly. So having verse 1 to 4 and then with 5, we see the context showing of the difference. It's literally 5 is where we finally get the confirmation that this context is not talking about the battle at the time. It's comparing and contrasting the battle at the time with the battle of sin and righteousness and eternal life or eternal damnation. Then we get into 6. Go ahead, Charles, with 6.
So, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. We got other verses where we can prove back up, not just with 1 through 5, but we got other things that can back up that verse 6 is talking about Jesus being that son that was born, that same government on his shoulder. When you're calling him Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, we're talking about Jesus in this prophecy to Jesus.
Good.
We're also talking about him in verse 7. Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David. Which of course you helped me out with that, Matt, with the throne of David. Jesus comes from that same lineage when you're talking about the throne of David.
Exactly, which also traces back to chapter 7 when we were talking about the house of David and how these other lands, these other areas are coming against him. But if he would, when they first said, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Back in chapter 7 and verse 14, and his name will be called Emmanuel. This is important because this goes into the point of interpretation. Interpretation biblically does not mean personal interpretation. It means definition. It means translation. That's what it really means. Emmanuel, both in chapter 7, verse 14, and in chapter 8, verse 8, is the same word meaning God with us. And then we get to chapter 9, and it says that the Messiah would be what, Charles? What would he be called?
Counselor, mighty God, Prince, Prince of Peace, mighty everlasting Father,
Exactly.
all of that stuff.
So when you think about it, interestingly enough, chapter 9, verse 6, all it's doing is reiterating what it already showed in chapter 7, verse 14. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Okay, Old Testament. He will be a son that is born, and he will be called God with us. And then in 8:8, and he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over, and he shall reach even to the neck and to the stretching out of the wings, and shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel. Again, bringing up the same person, but in a time where like the enemy is going to take over the area, but Jesus is going to be in there in that time, even though the land of Israel is not going to be under Israeli control, which it wasn't. Oh, Emmanuel, God with us. So Isaiah 9:6 is saying the same exact thing. So anybody who wants to claim that the Trinity is not in the Bible and it didn't even come till hundreds of years later, it's literally Old Testament doctrine. This ain't even including the fact of Genesis chapter 1, where it said, let us go down. Where God is talking about himself in multitude, or in plural, I should say. Not including all the other verses. So that's why that one's important too. But go ahead and continue with your explanation of 7.
Of the increase of the government and peace, there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. So when you bring that up, and we're talking about Jesus, once Jesus goes through the motions, suffers, dies, comes back the third day, Jesus is established. Once he gets through that and he establishes that, that's going to be the new way until judgment, until the end event. His kingdom, what he does, his setup, everything that ties to Jesus and what we get, our salvation, basically everything that ties to Jesus, that's all set up until literally the end of end times. Him sitting on the right side of the throne is all the way there to the end of end times. That's what I'm thinking about with verse 7.
One thing you didn't point out from the very beginning of it. Everything up until the first comma, there's something you need to point out about it.
Of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying the increase of government and peace, there shall be no end. Well, if I'm saying the increase, then let me make sure I say this right. Oh, well, if you're talking about the increase of his government and peace, you're talking about his rule, his kingdom, that increasing. You're talking about, or wouldn't you also include his glory as well? And the
Well,
peace
no,
that you
because
get when,
that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about his glory. It's talking about, I mean, that will increase. That's a side effect, yeah, but that's not what it's saying.
but basically just because when you're talking about his government, you're talking about his rule, his kingdomhood, what he rules and what he judges.
There you go. So
That increases.
his ruling, or in other words, his authority and his peace. Now, this is important because this is one of the things that Jewish folk today get incorrect. It's one of the prophecies of the Messiah that they get incorrect. The reason that one of the reasons they believe that Jesus is not the Messiah is because after he showed up, there's still wars going on in the world, even still today. But in verse 7, it didn't say that his government and his peace shall have no end. Did it, Charles?
Well, it started off with the increase. So
Exactly. The increase. Well, if you have peace, period, point blank, just all out peace, and you're in control of everything, are you increasing forever? Is your increase continually growing? Is there any increase at all?
no, you didn't mention one. You just mentioned peace. So no, no increase. It's just
Exactly.
a
So, in
steady line.
order for government and peace to increase, it means there has to be less at a prior time. So, the fact that when Jesus came back the first time, I mean, not came back, well, technically, if you include the time he wrestled with Jacob and all the other times he visited, but that's not what we're talking about. So, if you include the fact when Jesus came to earth the first time as a baby, and you include that time as the starting point of his government and his peace, now it makes sense why it says the increase of his government and peace is not going to end. It's going to continually get more and more. Well, let's look at society and everything from the time of Christ to now. Has it gotten more hectic or has it gotten more peaceful, Charles? Overall,
From
through history for
oh,
the last 2,000 years.
overall, I would say more hectic.
It's more hectic than all out wars going on and Christians dying all over the place.
I forgot that was going on. Then no, then I couldn't say no. Then no, it wouldn't be more hectic then.
Yeah, I was gonna add another. I was like, it's more hectic than Christians being mass murdered for even having Bibles or preaching about Jesus. Because that there are some levels of that still happen, but nowhere near as much as at the time of Christ.
No, so
So when we
less
look
hectic.
at exactly, so when we look at it as a whole, it has gotten less hectic. It has gotten more peaceful as a whole, especially for those that are Christians. Then the other part about his governance. Well, from the time of Christ to now, does Christianity have more of a governance over the world or less of a governance? Thomas?
Compared to, oh,
I would say more.
Yeah. This shouldn't even be a question. Catholic churches all over the place. The Bibles are all over the world. They didn't have that at the time of Christ. You barely had it in that general region. Not even the whole continent, let alone the whole world. So just like it said, his peace and his governance, they have been increasing little by little. It's not like they ever peaked out and it was all peaceful. We have always had fights between other religions trying to take out Christianity. You guys probably didn't know this until I told it to you, and I didn't know it till Steven Crowder brought it up, and I had to research to see if it was true. Turns out it was. The Spanish Inquisition didn't come out of people trying to evangelize. You know what started the Spanish Inquisition, Charles?
No, I don't.
Thomas, you know what started the Spanish Inquisition?
No.
It was a response to Islamic Inquisition. It was in response to Islamic jihad and them going about either killing or converting people. That's what it was responding to. And well, I was never taught that in history. I was only taught about the Catholics and the Spanish Inquisition. Now they killed people if they didn't want to convert. It's still wrong, don't get me wrong. It is still wrong they did that. But if you're not going to bring up what caused it, then we lose context. The fact that it was in response to something and it wasn't just, oh, well, we're going out to evangelize. Oh, you don't want to follow? I guess you get to die. The fact that it wasn't that is part of the problem. And that we don't know that is part of the problem. But so back to the main point of the context in verse 7, yeah. Jesus's governance and his peace has definitely been increasing. It's just never peaked out. It's kind of like it's like the stock market when it's running normally. As time goes on, the stock generally will go up, but you'll have a couple big dips. You'll have a few big dips, and then it'll keep going up. But as a whole, it is steadily going up the entire time. It is increasing as a whole. Similar as here. And then the one other thing I need to point out from 7, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. God's passion will perform this. Ironic considering the name of the movie that depicts Jesus' sacrifice, him suffering and dying for our sins, is called The Passion of the Christ. I wonder if they related it to that this was all performed by God's passion, his zeal. All right. Now go ahead, Charles, and continue with your explanation.
Now, for verse 8, when it says, the Lord sent a word into Jacob and it had lighted upon Israel, it almost threw me off. When you're talking about lighted upon Israel, I'm thinking of you're putting the light, like as we brought up before, you're putting a light to Israel, not the other lighted that we've used before.
My first thought would be about weight. I would look that word up because that's been used too many times in reference to lifting off.
I was thinking of that. Lighted off the camel, lighted off the colt, lighted off the. That's what I was thinking about. Let me go to the Strong's though, because it says a primitive root to fall, and a great variety of applications.
Well, then we're not talking about the light,
Intransitively or causatively, literally or figuratively.
So then we can't be
So let me
talking
go
about a
back.
weight. I mean, we can't be talking about a
Talking
light
about
like
a
a lamp.
light.
We
The
have to be
Lord,
talking about a weight.
so the Lord sent the word into Jacob, and it had lighted upon Israel. So if you're talking about a weight, let me figure out a way to re-explain that. Uh, Come back to me. Let me figure this out.
All right. Thomas?
The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. So, lighted, is it in reference to taking the weight off of them through the word?
Yeah. Exactly. Now, if they're taking the weight off of them, what does that mean in today's language?
Removing their burdens or sins or things of that nature.
Exactly. Making it easier on them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So by having this word sent to them into Jacob, or for all of Israel, having this word sent to them by God that they're going to have this Messiah, that the burdens of the yoke of bondage is going to be broken, and that there's going to be the Messiah is going to be also called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God. Knowing all this will make it lighter for Israel. Does that make sense, Charles?
Yes.
So good. Ooh, I got a weight lifted off of my shoulders, weight off my chest. In other words. All right, good. Good job on that, Thomas.
Yep.
All right, go ahead, Charles, when you're ready.
Last one, it's a continuation, but I'm starting something. Let me go to it. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, that say in the
Why'd
pride
you
and
add an H?
which one, Ephraim?
You said Ephraim. You
Oh, my
added the
bad.
huh for an H. I was like,
My bad.
why'd you? Go
That say
ahead.
in the pride and stoutness of the heart. So, verse 9, I'm starting off, it's just starting off by saying all the people, including Ephraim and the people living in Samaria, all and those same people that are in their pride and in their heart, that have that pride
Oh,
in their heart,
you
that
screwed up on the
say,
first part.
where
It's
it
not
says, and
all the
all the
people
people.
in Ephraim and in that Samaria. It says, and all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria.
So, what did I say earlier? Because I thought I separated them.
You said all the people in Ephraim and Samaria.
Then my bad. I thought I said all the people and Ephraim and Samaria. My bad.
That still wouldn't be accurate because by saying even Ephraim and see now you got me doing it. Even by saying even Ephraim and Samaria is different than saying and Ephraim and Samaria. Do you know the difference between the two statements?
No.
Okay, Thomas, do you know the difference between the two statements?
The two one more time.
Yeah. The difference between these two statements, here's the first statement. Even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria versus and Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria.
Yeah, I get it. So one is like adding him like, oh, I'm gonna add him like the last pick in a dodgeball game. And the other one's like, oh, he's part of the brotherhood and him. That's my brother and him. I don't know if I can explain that right, but I get the concept. I just
Yeah,
can't
not
really
really.
explain. Okay.
All right. So here's the difference. When it says even, it's making a comparison. Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria are the extremes. And it's saying all the people shall know, even them. I'll give you another example. Let's say a girl was into you, Charles, and you are so dense that you can't even pick up any signal signs at all. Even if she were to write on a piece of paper saying, Charles, can you meet me behind the Boys and Girls Club? And then you go behind there and she tells you that she has feelings for you, your response, you're so dense and you're so disbelieving that your response is, oh, that's a good joke. And you start busting up laughing, thinking she's playing around. And so I said, this girl that is coming up, she makes so much of an effort and so straightforward that everybody knows she's into Charles. Even Charles will know she's into Charles. Does that make more sense, Charles, and the difference?
With that example, it sounds like when you use the even, it just sounds like you're bringing me up as like a separation, but also like a
Yeah,
separation, but also like a comparison in a sense.
yeah. Like you're not the one who would normally get it, but in this specific situation, even you can't miss it.
Now I get it.
So when it says it here that all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria, it's like, well, everybody will know. And for Ephraim and Samaria, normally they wouldn't know, but even they are going to know.
Got it now. Yep.
All right. And then it goes into it saying what they're going to know. So, what are they going to know? That the ones that say in pride and stoutness of heart, and we're about to get into what is said. So, we know when we get into the next section that whatever is said is being said by people who have pride and arrogance of heart, and that even Ephraim and the inhabitants of Samaria are going to know, and it's going to give us a comparison. Most likely, we're going to see something that points out that those that are prideful and arrogant in heart, that they're not going to get away with it, or that they're still going to have to deal with God. That, or in the grand scheme, they're nobody. Something is going to be said negative about whatever these prideful people say. There's going to be consequences of some shape or form listed. That's the most likely. Now, do you guys get how I'm able to see that from verse 9? Charles and then Thomas?
How you're able to get the most likely part of how it's going to be bad.
Exactly.
I was
Like
thinking about
it's most likely going to be consequences or something coming up after we hear what they say.
I was about to say, when have we might have seen it before, but I don't think we've seen the time where you bring when you list it that way. That say in the pride and the stoutness of the heart. I don't think nothing good comes out of that for those people. Last time
Yeah.
we went through it, that's how I'm thinking like something bad's gonna happen because I can't think of a time where something good happened when you list it like that.
Yep. Definitely been a pattern of recognition on that. All right, Thomas, do you understand now we got that from the context of 9?
I was gonna
We don't
say
know.
the same thing Charles said.
Good. All right. Then does anybody have any comments or questions about the first section as we're about to go into the second section? Now will be the time to raise your hands. All right, then Thomas, go ahead when you're ready.
All right, I'll be reading Isaiah 9, verses 10 through 14. Give it a couple seconds. The bricks are falling down, but we will build with hewn stones. And sacrums are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore, the Lord shall set up
Sycamores.
sycamores. Let me start 10 over. The bricks are falling down, but we will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. Therefore, the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together, the Syrians before, and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For the people turn not unto him that smiteth him. neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and branch and rush in one day. It's a whole lot going on. All right, taking
Uh,
it
not really.
consequence wise.
I can't even give you that.
All right, let's take it verse by verse.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna read 10 one more time. The bricks are falling down, but we will build with hewn stone, and sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars. So it sounds like they're replacing one for the other. The stuff that is fallen and is no longer good is being switched out for things that are better, for that are good. Hewn stone.
Who's saying this?
We go back. If we jump back to 9, the Lord sending the word to into Jacob. So it's the Lord God.
No.
Okay,
Try again.
let me go back.
This time read the whole verse instead of stopping at the first part of it.
All right, the Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lighted up Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim. Okay, let's say in the pride and so this is Ephraim and Samaria. They're the ones saying this, right? If I got that correct.
No. All right. It says in there, the ones that say in their pride and stoutfulness of heart.
Oh yeah, you did mention that. My bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So
so the
this
one
is what's being said in verse 10 is what the prideful and stoutful in heart are saying. And then we get so the ones that are prideful are saying, we ain't worried about the falling down rocks. We'll build with hewn stones. We're not worried about the sycamore trees getting cut down. We'll change over into cedars. So what is he saying by saying that then? The prideful man. What's his point he's making?
we're not worried about what you so called can do to us. We'll just figure it out ourselves. And but it makes sense with 11 though. I want to get into 11. Was that a good explanation or no?
Uh Close, but the one part is about worried about who's gonna do something. You didn't bring up who it's relating to. We're not worried about
God.
God, is
Yeah, God.
because anything that doesn't isn't successful, we could just reroute to a new destination, to a new path, and that'll get us to the destination we want to go. So all we
That's
got to
crazy.
do is a switch up here. This is a perfect example of people today do this all the time. You ain't got things going right with God when you're halfway following God. You turn away from God entirely, and then suddenly things are working out financially. Oh yeah, I'm not worried about God. When I was trying to put a little effort in, everything was failing. Now everything's going good. So if everything does fail again, I'll just go do something else. I don't need to turn to God. I don't need to do right by Him. They do the same thing with jobs and finances today.
That's facts.
Mm-hmm. But then go ahead with verse 11.
All right, read it one more time. Therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him, and join his enemies together. Okay, let me continue. Continuation of the Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they should devour Israel with open mouth. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. So we have, because they feeling like they can just find a fix for whatever God throws at him. He's like, all right, well, I'm put it. He's like, all right, well, he's sending his the opponents of them. It says right here, therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him and join his enemies together. So he's gonna send the Syrians and then afterwards the Philistines. So if the Syrians don't handle business, you got the Philistines coming right after to to finish him off and devour Israel.
Good. Good job on the connection on the 11 to it too.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So the prideful person is like, we're not worried about something ain't working out when we ain't with God, because we'll just replace it with something else. Nah, I'm gonna send enemies and they're gonna destroy you.
Yeah.
You know what that's like? That's like a mom trying to discipline the kids and the kids have no respect for them. And so the kids go like, well, so what? You're our mom. We're not worried about you. Like, oh, you ain't worried about me. Okay, okay. Just wait till your dad gets home. No, 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 no. That's basically
Yeah.
what God pointed out here. All right.
Real quick for 13, for the people turned not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the
Not
Lord,
Smitheth.
smiteth them. Neither do
There
they
you go.
seek the Lord of hosts. This part right here, for the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them. So they're not going to try to fight back,
Nope.
or they're going to be caught off guard.
Who's the him?
The enemies that God is going to be
No.
sending. Because the reason why I say this is because neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. So is God
No, this
for
is
the
just
first part
showing
right
that
now?
like we've seen it write it like that before. It's not saying the people. It said, for the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them. Who is smiting them?
Right, the folks that the Philistines and the
No,
Syrians.
him is one person, is it not?
Oh, oh wow, I didn't even notice that. Go ahead, bro.
So in other words, it's pointing out how the ones in their pride say that they're not worried if something screws up a little bit, they'll just change it out for something else. Then because of this, God will set up adversaries against him and combine his enemies together. And then in 13, for the people turn not unto him that smiteth them. So you're getting disciplined, you're not doing right, and you're literally bringing up how you're not worried about being disciplined by God. You're not worried about being smitten because you literally could just find another way. And then it says in 13, for the people turn not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. So not only like this whole statement being shown about they're going to get their consequences and the enemies are going to be brought against them, because not only do you show no remorse, repentance, you don't turn to God when that punishment is coming through, but you don't even seek him at all. Does that make more sense, Thomas?
So less focus on that and more focus on the part where they don't even seek the Lord at all, despite the punishment.
Exactly. And
Okay.
remember, all of this is saying that everyone is going to know that this is how it works, even Ephraim and Samaria. They're all going to know that this is how things work because of the enemies are going to be brought forth because they're disrespecting in the way they're living and how they're acting like they could just go about their business after God already strikes them once, after they're already disciplined. All of that correlates in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Charles, do you get that too?
Yeah, I'm glad you explained it.
All right, then go ahead with 14, Thomas.
Therefore, the Lord would cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day. So God is just gonna do away with them in one day.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Well, not just he's gonna cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush. What is rush?
Let me look it up. Rush. My bad, guys. I'm not that fast with the Strongs.
It's okay. Sometimes you got to take time. As long as you give the heads up. You got to make sure you say
All
that
right,
next time,
rush.
though.
From the same as marshy pool, different root, kettle, by implication, a rush, as growing there collectively, a rope of rushes, hook, rush.
Yeah, so we got a whole bunch of leftover wood basically on the ground.
Okay.
So this is the same problem and why California has such bad wildfires. They don't clean up the floors of the forest. They don't clean up the floors at all. So any fire that does happen has a lot of dry wood that's easy to burn available to it. So what is pointed out here is that so because of everything I just said, the Lord is going to cut off from Israel the head. Well, what would the head be? Everyone that's in charge, and the tail, everyone that's lagging behind. The branch, the connected part, and the rush, the excess that's on the ground. So does that make sense to you? What he's pointing out by saying that?
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. All right. Now then, does anybody have any comments or questions about the second section as we go to the final one for today? Now would be the time to raise your hands. All right, Charles, go ahead on mute and go ahead when you're ready.
I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 9, verses 15 to 18. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 15. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire, it shall devour the briers and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. 15 almost threw me off. Let me know if I'm wrong. When you say the ancient and honorable, he is the head. Now, because of verse 16, I was thinking about it a different way, but because of 16, now I'm thinking about the ancient and the honorable being, yeah, you're the head, you're the leader, you're on top, but you're not doing, you're falsely leading, in other words, even though you would be called the ancient and the honorable, even though you're the head.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just
But
want to make
but
sure
I
because
would but I
16.
would replace ancient and honorable with elders.
Oh yes, oh yeah. Let me do that. So elders, these an example would be like people that, well, the older people that preach God out of context. The older people that say there is no Trinity, while holding the King James Version book. So
Exactly.
those type of elders would be the head. Then it said the prophet that teaches lies is the tail, which is interesting. That the prophet is the tail, not like people on the bottom doing evil or doing this, taking advantage. The prophet is the tail. The tail is the lowest part. That's the weakest portion. That's the low of lows. The prophet that lies, teaches lies, that's crazy how I labeled them as the tail.
Well,
And with
it
verse,
you
go ahead,
forgot to
go ahead.
bring up one thing.
Um,
It has to do with the prophet part
so
and about
oh,
what I said.
should I have to add with the prophet? If you're teaching lies, you're obviously a prophet for other gods. You're not for the one true God. You're obviously,
Nope, that's not the
you
part you
know.
missed.
Oh, okay.
Thomas, do you know what he forgot to bring up? It has to do with the prophet and with what I said.
I don't.
All right. What you need to bring up, Charles, is that what I said was incorrect. The
With the ancient
tail,
honorable or the
no, because I was right about that. I said the leaders on that one. Okay, Charles, come on. I said with the prophet. Why would you bring up the ancient and honorable?
so which one were you wrong about?
The prophet. Because what did I say about the tail? I said the
And verse
tail was the ones
14.
that were just tagging along.
Oh, that. Okay. Okay. And then I just brought up how it's funny how the prophets are the tail, not the ones that are the evildoers, not the other people. It's funny how they became the tails. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Exactly. So the tail that's being cut off is those that are supposed to be prophets, but they teach lies. Well, if you think about what a tail is, it's not even the lowest part of the body. The tail is what branches out from the backside. Well, if you got people who are false prophets teaching lies, they're reaching people out to an off direction rather than being the flow of the full body. So what I said was incorrect. And that's what you need to bring up.
Okay.
All right. Does that make sense, Thomas?
Yes.
All right. Then go ahead and continue, Charles.
I got to reread 16. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they are led of them, and they that are led of them are destroyed. So, okay, so I already brought up about elders. So you're talking about the leaders causing them to err, and when you're erring, you're going away from God. You're not going towards God. You're all over the place, which we're going to get into that too. They that are led of them are so once being led are getting destroyed.
The ones that are
17.
being
They're
led by what? By who?
led of the head or tail that's leading them.
Exactly. So, what does that prove or state or show? You didn't explain it, you just reread it.
Doesn't it prove why God is coming against Israel in the way he is? Why he's been
No.
talking about coming against Israel with Rezin and all of that?
No. I mean not that verse, not that part. The thing as a whole, yeah, but how does that part specifically back that up?
Because I was thinking about the other thing was helping me with understanding who the ancient and honorable is, backing up who they are, who the head and the tail is. That's the only other thing I can think of.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, what does that have to do with that? Like, they that are led of them are destroyed. So if they're being led by them, then how does it back that up? It's not really explaining that at all. It's talking about a related subject, but not the same subject. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, then I don't know them.
All right, Thomas?
In relation to God cutting them off in the same day and in one day.
Nope. What made you guess that?
The previous verses that we just read in regards to the.
Well, what was my question?
Go ahead and ask it again. My bad.
Okay, Thomas, I'm gonna need you to really work on that. Really work on hearing the question and making sure you understand the question before you give an answer.
I thought it
Because
was a
if you
relation
get
question.
nope, because
All
if
right.
you would have heard the question and knew what the question actually was, you wouldn't have answered that at all. What I said was, what does that part of 16 and they that are led of them are destroyed? What does that prove or debunk? That was the question. Was had nothing to do with correlation.
Yeah,
Said, what
that's
does
my deal.
that
My
prove or
bad.
debunk? All right, so let me give you a chance to answer it. What does that prove or debunk?
I'm not sure.
All right. You don't get a pass for following false teachers. That's what it proves or debunks. Because it's pointing out, even here from God's perspective, that the ones that are led by them, the ones that are following them, that they're going to be destroyed. So, how much more in churches today where you follow a false prophet, a false teacher, an elder that is teaching lies? Does that make sense, Charles and Thomas?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sitting right here beating myself up because I was literally about to say false churches and false teachers, but I chose not to
Mm.
because I felt like it wouldn't have been right. I don't know why I thought that.
Because instead of looking at the context, you second guessed yourself.
That's
Whether it's
crazy.
the, yep. This is why I tell you guys every time. If you need to reread, reread. If you need to ask me to re-say the question again, I can re-say the question. Now, I shouldn't have to repeat the question 3, 4 times because if you're paying attention, you should hear the question the first time I ask. But if you want me to rephrase the question or you don't understand or something pops up where you did hear but you didn't get quite focused enough, it's okay to ask to repeat. It's okay to reread. But if you're just throwing out answers, if you're not even answering to the question I actually asked, then what are we doing here? You're not getting context. You're just having me tell you what the answer is. And how is that any different from any other church? So whether it's the question I ask, whether it's the Bible reading and what we read, if you need to reread, if you need to re-ask, then communicate it and do it. Don't just throw out answers when you're not even answering the right question. And don't just throw out answers that you're not sure if they even line up at all. You're just guessing out of your head, out the side of your neck. And don't just stop yourself from answering, second guessing yourself without at least rereading to make sure does it actually not follow the context. That's the difference between a BS answer and a good answer. Even if the answer is incorrect, whether or not it lines up with the context is a possibility. As long as it even has a semblance to it, it makes sense. But that's why you guys got to be more focused in hearing what the question is and hearing what the statement is and responding with a focused answer. All right. So yeah, that's what that proves in 16. Now go ahead, Charles, with 17.
So 17. Therefore the Lord shall have no joy in their young men, neither shall have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. This is still talking about God not having any mercy for fathers, widows, but none of the Israelites. He's still going to have his hand stretched out against them. He's still against them, in other words. He's not showing any mercy.
Not quite. You're close, but not quite right. Because he's literally just making a point. But you didn't explain the point. You said the detail and not the point. Thomas, what's the point he's making in 17?
I'm not sure off the top of the head.
All right. I'll give Charles one more chance. Charles, what's the point he's pointing out in 17?
I thought what I said was it, other than God going against Israel. I don't have it.
All right. The point he's making is what is said right before. It's not the individual sections. It's not fatherless, widows, evildoers. It's the fact that he says, for everyone is an hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaketh folly. So the reason that nobody is getting mercy in these groups, you might have individuals, but as a whole, the groups are getting no mercy from God, even though they're being led astray, is because every single one of them is hypocrites and all that too. Every single one of them is wrong. It's kind of like I'm an overall good person, but you just lied to your wife telling her she doesn't look fat in them jeans. But you just lied to your friend saying you don't have money when you got $5 you could give him. So that's what it's getting into. God doesn't get any joy from any of them at all because they're all hypocrites living in sin. So yeah, of course they're going to be destroyed, even the ones that are being led in these false churches and false areas. Does that make sense, Charles?
Now I see what you're talking about.
Thomas, does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. And this is another important point that I would say about the false churches. And Thomas, I told this to you before, that I give a person a month before I consider them a fake Christian. You remember us having that conversation?
I do.
Charles, do you remember that conversation?
No.
All right. When somebody is at a false church, in the same way as someone who's in an abusive relationship or a relationship they just consider abusive in one way or another, you get a 1 month grace period from me where I don't consider it your fault, where you're only a victim and not a cause at all. Okay? The reason why I give a month is because after I've given you the information proving that your church is false, after I've told you or you've been informed or understand, you've learned that the person you're with is abusive, you have a whole month to make other reservations. You got a whole month to figure out where you're going to live, what you're going to go, the whole nine. You just moved in there. It's only been a month. So you can't really be blamed for the fact you're there. But after a month, you've made a choice to stay. And if you've made a choice to stay, you've made a choice to accept what is happening. And whether it's abuse whether it's a false church. If you choose to accept what happens, you're an accomplice. You're no longer a victim. You're an accomplice to your own demise. Ooh, I like that. I like that. Anyways, does that make sense now, Charles?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And that's pretty much here too. Like Thomas, you've been in position. Charles, you've been in position where you've given somebody the truth and shown that what they believe in, what they're learning at this church is false. And 99% of the time, even if you give them time, what do?
They still go to the falsehood. Still go to the
Yeah,
same church.
exactly.
Block your number, argue with you.
So if I give you the truth and you choose a lie, haven't you now become a liar? I like that too. I like the other one better though. I'm gonna have to remember that. You've become the accomplice to your own demise. I love that. That just came out. Anyways, all right, go ahead, Charles, with the last one.
Now, in the last one, correct me if I'm wrong. For wickedness burneth as the fire. So when you're saying that, I'm telling you that wickedness burning like I'm giving you a visualization of how wickedness is. This particular wickedness we're getting into right now. I'm giving you the visualization.
Yeah,
Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. So this wickedness that's burning like a fire, giving you the visualization of it. This same wickedness, what does fire do when it goes into any plants, any forest? It destroys, it devours, it consumes, it utterly
yep.
destroys. And I think that's what 18 is doing. It shall devour the briers and the thorns. We know what fire does to any land, good or bad. You're just gonna destroy it. You made bad land worse. You made good land bad. So you're just devouring, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest. That sounds like more burning. That sounds like wickedness destroying things.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. When you're talking about you should mount up like the lifting up of smoke, this is now I'm tripped up. Let me go to mount up. Because when I'm thinking of mounting up, I'm thinking about mounting on a horse, mounting on an animal.
Yeah, yeah, like preparing for war type. Yeah,
So you're gonna so like the lifting of the smoke. So you're gonna burn. Your wickedness is burning everything, consuming and destroying things. And like
hmm
the smoke from the fire, you're gonna get up on your horse and just keep it pushing and continue. And your wickedness is gonna burn something else. Get on the mount, keep it going, keep it pushing. Like a smoke, the smoke just goes away. It just keeps on going. It just goes, keeps on pushing, keeps on moving
Well, not just
until it
that. I mean, we're talking
dissipates.
about mounting a horse. Like, what are you trying to do by doing that? You're trying to give some power. You're trying to show strength. But if you're lifting up like smoke lifts up, you may raise up, but you have no power. You have nothing in it. You're empty. Empty threats, in
Mm,
other words. Similar thing to that could also be another way to look at that.
okay, so even though your wickedness has done all this damage, it's still when you try to lift yourself up, it's emptiness, it's void, basically, it's pointless.
Exactly. Exactly.
Got it.
Good. All right. And that's another thing too that I'll say in there as well. The wickedness burns as fire, and it shall devour the briers and thorns. Yeah, it's gonna burn them up, the fire is. Everything's gonna be destroyed of it. But as they lift up through destroying these other areas, it's a empty lifting. It's not really doing anything in the grand scale. Good. So does anybody have any comments or questions about the last section before we pray out the Bible study portion? Now would be the time to raise your hands. All right, then Thomas, go ahead and unmute and pray us out from the Bible study portion when you're ready.
All right, if you guys can bow your heads with me. Father, thank you for another wonderful Bible study. There's a lot of things we can take home with this one. First one being, may we not be the head or the tail, but part of the body of Christ and not of the things of this world. Also, may we not find ourselves diving back into false teachings, things of that nature. We'll always go to context and do our own due diligence to get the context. And when time arises where we encounter people who try to combat with us, because like they say, the devil knows scripture as well. May we not hesitate to turn to somebody like Matt who's on another level if we feel like we don't know it all ourselves. And in things like this, we're highly grateful for the brotherhood, grateful for you, your word. And in Jesus' mighty name, we thank you. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Good. Now, on to tonight's Bible listening. So the Bible listening for tonight is from Leviticus chapter 14. Scroll down. Yeah, there we go. Chapter 14 to chapter 25. Again, Leviticus 14 to 25. Let me know when y'all got it.
Got it.
Got it.
All right. Now, last night's listening was Exodus 40 to Leviticus 13. And we'll have Thomas go first, and then Charles, and I'll do mine.
I don't even have this one, guys. I'm not gonna sit here in front. And when I try to think of something, I just read it. Hold on, give me a second. If you want to come back to me, I'll have something. I just read all
right.
this.
All right, go ahead, Charles, first. And then if you're not ready, I'll go, because there have been times where I didn't have it ready and I still was able to because of just going through it. So you can go after me or before me, Thomas, but we'll try before, if not after.
Sounds good.
Yeah, mine is simple. You probably know which one I'm gonna bring up. Leviticus 10, verses 1 and 2. Aaron's sons offering the strange fire. The fire, in other words, you're offering what you're not supposed to be offering, which it's funny even bringing it up because there's a whole list of instructions that we've been listening to. This is how you do the offering. This is how you set up the altar. This is how you do the sin offering. This is how you set this up. This is how you set that up. You guys start off in Leviticus, literally the first two verses. You go do something completely different from literal instructions that you were given. You do this strange fire that you're not supposed to be doing, and this fire consumes you, burns you up. You burn to death. Like it probably didn't just hit me. I just think it's funny that we're sitting there. I'm sitting there trying to stay up. And this is how you do the sin offering. Sprinkle the blood on the horns, and this is how you do the trespass offering. And you sprinkle the blood, and I'm trying to stay up to this, and then I get to this part, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Oh man, I would have at least went back to the instruction manual before I just do a strange offering.
Exactly.
Go ahead. How do you guys feel about it?
Go ahead, Thomas. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
Charles, that was hilarious, man. I feel the same freaking way. It's hard.
That's the voice.
It's so hard, bro, to stay awake to that stuff.
Especially because he doesn't. I've only heard him add emphasis in the New Testament and like part of Psalms. Something in Psalms, there's something in Isaiah, and then New Testament. He doesn't add emphasis either way. Like how weird. It's the same blend. And you put the sprinkle the blood on the horns,
Yeah, and then
the
freaking
altar
Job.
set
He
up.
puts emphasis in Job for some weird reason.
Like I think parts of it he does, which is funny. It's random. It really is.
Yep.
Don't worry. One day
All
I'm gonna
right.
get the voice down so good, you guys are gonna be like, "Who's playing the Bible listening on the voice?" I'm gonna get his voice down. Watch.
I would definitely laugh, bro. I would laugh so hard. Okay. Uh, so Thomas, did you have anything you wanted to add on it?
Yeah, we just right after all the offerings and stuff, we get into all the leprosy and stuff, and it's crazy. Like I know the next listening is going to be all about leprosy and what the spot and if the spots are beneath or above the skin. It gets crazy. But there was a certain area. I think it's Leviticus 13 in the Bible right now, uh, and it says this is 45, 46. And the leper shall dwell alone, without the camp shall his habitation be. So this happens either you're being struck by God or something just happens and now you are pretty much isolated outside of the camp. You're the black sheep now. Stay away, which is crazy. And then that's when we get into all the ways to find signs of leprosy and stuff like that, and if it's healing or if it's not. I know this next reading is going to be really boring, but I'm just saying. That's it, y'all.
Okay. All right. So the only thing that I'll add to Charles is just the fact that with Nadab and Abihu, that only because I didn't bring it up in mine, is that their dad got in like we've seen this before. Like, how do you let it get to the point that you're offering strange fire? Like, we saw that with Eli and his sons, where his sons were sleeping around with all the women of the temple. Everyone that would come through, they trying to get with, and he didn't do nothing until consequences was coming. And it's like, but same question could be said for Nadab and Abihu. Like, literally, you're one of the first priests, one of the first ones of the entirety of history for the lineage of Christ, Abraham's seed going through. You're one of the first. How little effort, how little training did they have in making sure that they do what God has called them to do rather than just doing what they feel good in relation to God? That puts that question to it. Because we've seen in the Bible when a child is trained up in the ways of God and they stay that way. We've seen when, like with Enoch, he never died. But we've also seen where people halfway teach and they train them in some areas and not others. And it's always that one area that they didn't train them up in, that's where they fall. That's where they fail. That's where they fall away, actually. All right. Now, Thomas, were you able to figure out which one you want to bring up?
I just told you mine.
Oh, then you didn't. Okay, you didn't listen to my question again. Then I said, did you have anything you wanted to add to that as in
My
meaning in
fault.
relation to Charles?
My fault. That was
Gotta
mine.
do a better, but gotta do a better job on that. All right,
Charles, what did you
now,
hear? Yeah, I could have sworn you asked me if I found one.
I
no,
don't remember saying if I found one.
I
No,
said, do
he
you have anything you want
Matt
to add
asked me
on
if I
that?
found one. So did you end up finding one, Thomas?
No, I
You could
did
go back.
say that after the fact,
Right,
but
and I
not
said,
when I
yeah, I
first
got
asked
one
the
and
question.
everything.
I said, no, no, but that was after the fact. I said at the beginning of it, I said, but did you have anything else you wanted to add on to that? And then you started reading yours. But
I guess just have to
anyways,
go back and listen. I don't know.
yeah. I think I'm gonna stop doing that. I think I've already proven many times that you guys don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, all of a sudden,
I'm
all
just
of a
getting
sudden,
tired
you
of it.
gotta go
Like
back on this one because
how many
I heard
times I
you ask
gotta
if I.
go through this, man? I'm gonna go through. Listen, Thomas. I'll make you a deal. I will make you a
Let's
deal
do it.
right now. You ready for this?
Go.
If I am right this time, I am never going back again because I'm not doing that no more. Too many times. You ready for that
And the
deal?
contrast?
If I'm wrong, I mean, what else would change? It'd be just normally what it is.
You owe me a lunch.
Oh, all right. You'll get a lunch when you come over for Thanksgiving food. So there you
That's
go.
not fair, bro. You can't do that. That's not fair. Wow.
No, I'm just playing. All right, cool. We could have that bet. We could have that bet. I'll get you a lunch. We'll go out to eat or something separate from that. Um,
Yep.
but uh, but yeah, all right. But if I do this, like I'm doing this, so we agreeing on this. We got this settled.
Yep. That's
All right,
settled.
all right. So I'll go back and listen to it.
Sounds good.
And remember, as I said, I did say if you had found one, but prior to that, I said, did you have anything you wanted to add on to this? I was still talking about Charles's portion. That's what I said happened. Now,
I think I
mine.
answered to that. Then afterwards, you asked me another question. I answered
Nope.
again.
We'll
All
see.
right.
All right. So now, but back to the main point. I was gonna go through this. Okay, so here's my thing. I wanted to do later on about in chapter 13, not 13. Where was it? In chapter 11, the things clean and unclean in chapter 12, because it does go into the food and things that people consider kosher. But I think there's a more important one that has to be pointed out, and it kind of correlates to the one that Charles was bringing up, and that's in chapter 5. And it's from verse 6 to 13. Now, I'm not going to read every single one because it's not necessary, but I will read verse 6 and then probably
Matt, what chapter again? Because I heard 5.
chapter 5 in verse 6 to 13.
Chapter 5.
Yeah.
Let me go back. Go ahead.
Why'd you say it like that?
No, my connection. Go ahead.
Oh, you said it like, why you say it like that?
Yeah, that's
So,
my connection. My bad.
all right. Chapter 5. You probably because I said earlier that I was thinking about doing by chapter 11 or 13 with the whole the clean and unclean.
That's probably
But
what it was. Because my connection. Yeah, that's probably what it
okay.
was.
Yeah, because I was gonna bring that up because that's good how like people think things are kosher like the not eating pork, but that's actually not biblically accurate. It just depends on where you are when you're eating it. But I think this one's more important. In
Mhm.
verse 6 and 7 and 8. And it is 6 to 13, but 6, 7, and 8. And he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin which he hath sinned. A female of the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats, for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his sin. And if he be not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring forth his trespass, which he hath committed, 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons unto the Lord, one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And he shall bring them unto the priest, who shall offer that which is for the sin offering first, and wring off the head of his neck, but shall not divide it asunder. Okay, so that section from 6 to 13 is all about for the sin offering, for a trespass offering, that if you don't have the initial offering requirement, there was a lesser offering that you could do that was easier to get. And if you didn't have that second one, there was a third option, there was a fourth option. The levels to which God went out of his way to make sure that you had the ability to offer, you had the ability to follow is ridiculous. So when we get to chapter 10 and they offered strange fire, after having all this excess access, is makes it even more crazy. That's why it relates to it. And both of those stuck out to me, but this one it was more important at this moment. Because it's like literally. And to top it off for people, this is another problem. People want to go about and establish how they want to serve God. rather than what the Bible says in context. And then you think about how patient God was, that he made so many possibilities you could choose in how you're going to follow him. That is crazy. You mean to tell me that he gave so many different kinds of things you could do and place your offering if you didn't have a good amount of money, if you were on the poverty side, if you didn't have anything? He gave options. And people still went about to establish their own righteousness. And then I think about it with today, and people are still doing this. Thomas, how hard is it to get baptized?
It's not hard. Just
Don't forget.
gotta put that effort in and really want it.
Exactly. Charles, how hard is it to understand what's needed for salvation now that we've been through it so many times?
Not hard.
Is it hard? It's not hard. Not hard at all. Thomas, is there any question with the amount of verses we've already gone through? Is there any question that you have to get baptized to be saved in today's day and age?
There should be no question.
And
It's right there,
Charles,
plain
is
and simple.
there any question at all that it's incorrect to say you can accept Christ through a prayer?
No question.
See, this is the point, and this is why this one sticks out to me. You literally have, whether Old Testament or New, God gives so easy of instructions. You don't have to do no legwork at all. And I'll use Thomas's brother as an example. Thomas's brother was bedridden. We still were able to baptize him before he passed on. So is there any legitimate excuse for going about to establish your own righteousness when we have the word and we have so much of the word? So much of the word. Proving it? No. You may have an excuse, but it is definitely not a legitimate one. I'll tell you that for a fact. All right. Now then, do you guys have anything you want to add or say on mine? Thomas and then Charles.
No.
No.
All right, then I'll go ahead and close us out. Everybody have a good night.